Hey, Opus.
Good seeing, brother.
These places saved my life. Was it for these clubs that were in place in 2005 when I first walked into a club? I wouldn't be standing here today supporting these clubs like all of us are. It's great to be here. It's like one of those historical days to be involved with. You know?
Yeah, it's day one here at the...
Day one of several. I'm talking number 156.
Here you are.
There you go. Just said keep it visible.
Wait a second, let me get a photo. I want to take a picture of that at the same time.
I always got my cell phone on me. Of course, it's broken.
Of course. Retail dealers.
Retail dealers?
Yeah, it's the bridge of the old, the dealer, and the new, the retail. The retail dealers.
As opposed to like wholesale.
As opposed to those dope pushers, those scummy dope pushers pushing their dope on the street. I like retail dealer a lot better. I like the sound of that.
As opposed to peddler.
Peddler, yeah. The hawker of tawdry wares. Some of us. Let's not throw any users, growers, or dealers under the bus when we legalize it. Hey, everybody must get stoned and have a seat at the legalization table.
And a seat on the bus.
And a seat on the bus, on the magic bus, the magical mystery tour bus.
On the Cannabis.
On the Cannabis. There's seats for everybody.
That's great.
This is such a, I mean, this is all of British Columbia basically telling the federal government, excuse me, you're wrong, we're right. And it's we the people who voted these people in, and they are listening to us. Isn't that amazing? That's democracy. You know, we have people who died fighting for the democracy. My family and Carol's family is in the military and all this kind of stuff. So, you know, democracy is easy to lose. We got to keep it and be vigilant, and this is what we're doing right here.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As you indicated, my name is Kirk Tousaw. I practice law in the Tousaw Law Corporation, and I practice law almost exclusively in the area of cannabis and medicinal cannabis access to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Counsel in various matters before the courts involving charter access to cannabis medicine, including the Smith case involving access to derivative and edible cannabis products that will be decided tomorrow morning by the Supreme Court of Canada. I also represent several dispensaries and professional edible producers in Vancouver and more across Canada. My Vancouver clients have been operating safely, responsibly, and compassionately for, in some instances, many years. The brave persons operating medicinal cannabis dispensaries over the past 15 years in this city and elsewhere put their liberty at risk in order to provide critically and chronically ill Canadians with safe access to medicinal cannabis and medicinal cannabis derivative products. Many have laid the groundwork for responsible operation of medicinal cannabis dispensaries, not just in Vancouver, but across North America. I commend the city for its leadership role in bringing regulation to this area, a responsibility that our federal government has thus far failed to address. I rise to speak on two primary points related to access to derivative products and the impact of the bylaw on the existing subset of responsible medicinal cannabis providers that have a long track record of doing good work in this city. On the issue of access to edibles, I urge the Council to adopt the approach generally used in other jurisdictions, such as Colorado and Washington, but also including all U.S. medicinal states and most countries that permit access to medicinal cannabis products in the world. That approach is to reasonably regulate and not to prohibit these products. We know, and we heard the presentation from Vancouver Coastal Health, that prohibition actually causes harm and that reasonable regulation promotes public health. It seems difficult to reconcile that aspect of the presentation this evening with a complete ban on edible cannabis products. That will have the effect, undoubtedly, of sending those products to the black market, being made by unregulated suppliers, dispensed in unregulated environments, and will increase harm rather than decrease harm. Food safe requirements, labeling, and child-proof containers promote health. The proposal to ban edible products other than cooking oils will not deal with those purported goals. In fact, it is likely to cause the opposite results. With respect to existing dispensaries that have a solid track record of operation in this city, many of these will, under the current proposal, be forced to close or relocate at either significant expense or prohibitive expense as a result primarily of the location restrictions. That is neither fair nor desirable because these locations have demonstrated a history of responsible operation and newer businesses have not. I urge the council to provide some flexibility to allow for relaxing or waiving the location restrictions in appropriate cases, perhaps on a case-by-case basis, if the dispensary has local community support and a track record of positive contributions to their local areas. There are a number of aspects of the bylaw that are worthy of comment. I think that it's important to underscore that this is a step forward, a step in the right direction. You'll undoubtedly hear a tremendous amount of both praise and criticism of various aspects of the bylaw as you move through the public hearing process. I urge you to consider those carefully and to consider it all foremost with the patient in mind. And it is particularly in relation to edibles that I think this bylaw falls a bit short. Certainly, I think there needs to be grandfathering of existing locations that have demonstrated a positive track record. I think that's something that has to be considered because the opposite of that will be newer operators without that positive track record actually being preferred as a result of some of these restrictions. But I've got to come back to the issue of ethics. And, you know, I'm a lawyer. I'm not a doctor. But I've had the occasion to cross-examine expert witnesses. I've had the occasion to prepare and gather expert testimony. I have attempted to educate myself as best as possible on the physiological, pharmacological properties of cannabis, and I think I've done, over the last decade of practice, a pretty good job in understanding cannabis as a plant. There are not a dearth of studies on cannabis. Cannabis is the most studied plant in the history of humanity. Most of the studies...
Right.
Appreciate the applause, but the time is ticking. Most of the studies have been in an effort to demonstrate harm. Most of these studies have been funded by organizations, principally funded by the United States government, trying to find the harms associated with consuming cannabis. Almost universally, they failed to find significant levels of harm related to consuming cannabis, and that's because cannabis is, generally speaking, one of the safest substances, psychoactive substances known to humankind. It also has a track record of being used primarily through oral ingestion as a medicine for literally thousands of years. The onset of inhalation as the primary mode of using cannabis for medical purposes is a relatively recent phenomenon. And it's a phenomenon that exists predominantly because of the prohibition of cannabis. The fact of the matter is that people smoke cannabis because it provides an almost immediate effect. That's great, as I argued in front of the Supreme Court of Canada, and as 2 courts of this province have already accepted. If you're dealing with acute conditions, if you have a migraine headache coming on and you want instantaneous relief, inhalation is a great way to obtain that relief because the effects are felt right away. Unfortunately, it's not great if you're dealing with chronic conditions because what it requires you to do is inhale medicine on an almost continuous basis in order to keep the blood levels of the active compounds in your system in order to deal with your chronic condition. And so if you're dealing with chronic pain, edibles are the preferred means of ingesting the medicinal compounds because while it does take a little bit of trial and error, like any medicine, Take Two and Call Me in the Morning has been around for a long time, and we do it with all kinds of medicines that physicians prescribe to achieve a suitable dosage through trial and error. And so while it takes a little bit of tweaking in order to find the right dosage for edibles, the problem with sending this out of the dispensaries is that those products are now going to be made by people that have no experience doing it. And it will be much more difficult to achieve that balance between dosage and optimum effect. So I think you're going to see with this ban on edibles the exact opposite of the effects that you're trying to achieve with this ban. And I do commend those effects. Thank you for your attention this evening. And again, for Vancouver's continued leadership in this critical area of public health policy. Thank you.